Ever walked into your own kitchen and realized you're the only one in the room who didn't know your marriage was already over? I did. I stepped inside and saw divorce papers lined up on my counter like a firing squad. Dana sat at the head of the table with her 4 friends flanking her, arms crossed, phones face down, smirks ready. My name was already written into their little verdict. No discussion, no warning, just judgment. And the worst part? It was my house. But somehow I was the one on trial. Stick around and hit that subscribe button, because what happened next wiped every single smile off that table. That night in the kitchen didn't come out of nowhere. If you rewind a little, it starts in a backyard that looked perfectly harmless. And that's exactly how traps always look at first. It was a Saturday down on Desert Willow Circle. Troy had the grill going, country music low on the speaker, kids tearing around with plastic swords. A scene so normal it should have been safe. I was by the grill with Troy, flipping burgers, talking about overtime and bad knees. The women were inside around the island, wine glasses in hand, laughing that loud, sharp laugh you can hear over everything else. And Dana floated between those two worlds like she owned the place, hugging someone's wife, tapping someone's shoulder, topping off their glass. Dressed just right, hair perfect, wine glass held like a trophy. Standing there, I looked around that yard, smoke in the air, sun dropping behind the stucco houses, and thought, all right, maybe I did something right in this life. Funny thing about that feeling, it's usually the last calm breath before someone pulls the floor out from under you. As the sun dipped, everyone drifted inside. Plates clinked, fridge doors swung open and shut, kids got parked in front of a movie. We circled that big kitchen island, guys on one side, women on the other. That invisible line that always shows up at parties. Dana stepped into the center like it was a stage she'd been waiting for. She tapped her spoon on her glass, waited for the quiet, then smiled that watch this smile she saves for an audience. We don't do equal in our house, she announced. Rowan tries, but I run the real decisions. Laughter. Not loud, just familiar, like they'd all heard this bit before. Lexi tossed her hair. That's how you do it, girl. A couple guys looked down into their drinks, unsure if they were allowed to laugh. I forced a smile and tried to fire back. Then I'll stop pretending to fix the kitchen sink. You can approve that decision too. More laughter. Louder. But in that moment, with a paper plate in my hand, I heard something under the laughter, a sentence she'd rehearsed in rooms I wasn't invited into. And that's when I knew. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her punchline. The ride home felt longer than the drive out, though it was the same 20 minutes. Radio low, streetlights sliding across the windshield. Dana turned toward the window like the night outside was more interesting than anything happening inside the car. I let a few miles pass before I finally said, "You really had to turn our marriage into a bit?" She didn't look at me. "You're too serious, Rowan. It was a joke. Don't be dramatic." That word landed harder than the joke did. Dramatic. Like asking for respect in front of people we know is some kind of performance. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, let the next few lights pass in silence. Part of me wanted to argue, list every time she'd done the same thing. But another part, the part that had been ignored longest, just felt tired. And somewhere between those streetlights, a thought surfaced. I'm not here to be comic relief in my own marriage. Then another, even clearer. We weren't driving home together. We were driving back to 2 different houses that just happened to share walls. We pulled into the driveway like any other night. Same garage door, same porch light, same keys, and the same bowl by the door. But something was different, and it wasn't the house. Dana kicked off her heels in the entryway, didn't even look back. She reached straight for her phone on the counter, thumb already heading for those apps she lives in when real life gets uncomfortable. Before she could disappear into that little screen, I said, "Hold up." She paused just enough to be annoyed. "What now?" I kept my voice steady. "Rude in public buys distance at home. That's the rule from now on." She gave this short, sharp laugh. "You'll live," she said, bumping my shoulder as she walked past. A second later, she was on the couch, scrolling, like the kitchen, the joke, the look on my face never happened. I stood alone in the hallway, staring at the tile under my feet. It felt like I'd just drawn a line there, even if nobody could see it. I knew one thing. If I didn't hold that line, if I let this slide again, I wasn't a husband anymore. I was just flooring for her to walk on. The next morning came like any other. Sun through the blinds, coffee maker rattling, that quiet before the day really starts. Dana moved around the kitchen in that clipped, efficient way she gets when she wants to look busy and untouchable. She poured herself coffee, took 2 sips, and left the dirty mug right in the sink. No rinse, no water, just a little test, sitting there. I looked at the cup, then at her. "Your turn for the dishes," I said. Calm, no edge. She jingled her keys, checked her reflection in the microwave door. "I've got an early meeting. You'll be fine." Door opened, door shut, just like that. I washed my own plate, my own mug, wiped my side of the counter clean. Then I walked down the hall, stepped into my home office, and locked the door behind me. We'd never locked doors in this house. A few minutes later, I heard her come back for something she forgot. The doorknob rattled once. She paused. "New boundaries, huh?" "Something like that," I said. It was a small thing, a cheap door lock. But for me, it was the first time my actions matched the line I'd drawn. It was just a cheap door lock. But it was the first thing in that house she couldn't open anymore. On the way to work, I swung by Troy's place. His garage door was already open, like always. Smell of oil, old wood, and whatever job he'd left half-finished the night before. He tossed me a nod, kept working on an AC unit on his bench. "You look like hell," he said. It wasn't an insult, just data. I told him about the joke at the island, the car ride, the mug in the sink, the locked office door. Not whining, just logging the events like a report. Troy wiped his hands on a rag, looked over. "Man, you're not her doormat," he said. "You keep filing complaints, nothing changes. You gotta write a policy." "A policy," I repeated. "Yeah, calendar, money, access. That's where they live, that's where they push. You hand all that over, they'll beat you with your own schedule." We stood there in the hum of the garage, both of us quiet for a second. And it clicked. I wasn't just hurt. I'd been unmanaged by myself. On the drive away, I made a decision. No more handing over my time, my wallet, or my peace so someone else could use it against me. From now on, I write the policy. That week felt like living with a ghost that still used my toothbrush. Texts about dinner turned into half sentences and scene. Home for dinner? Maybe. Or nothing at all. 2 nights in a row, she walked in late, heels in her hand, phone in her grip. "Out with the girls," she said, dropping her purse. "Which girls?" I asked. She lifted one shoulder. "You don't know everyone." That's the thing. When someone wants distance, they get vague. Vague is where all the lies live. We still shared a bed, technically. Same mattress, same pillows. But she lay on her edge, back turned, phone lighting up her face. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her scroll like it was a language I didn't speak anymore. One night I finally said, "If you want distance, take it honestly. Don't make me bankroll your escape route." She sucked in a breath, didn't answer. Rolled further away, if that was even possible. And right there, in the dark, it hit me. She wasn't just pulling back. She was building a runway. And she was planning to use my money and my silence as fuel. She wasn't pulling away. She was preparing for takeoff. And she expected me to pay for the fuel. A few days into that Cold War, even the kitchen felt different. The wall clock in there had always ticked, but now it sounded louder, like it was keeping track of every second I'd spent financing my own disrespect. One evening, I laid a piece of paper on the counter and waited for her to look up from her phone. "What's that?" Dana asked. "My schedule," I said. "New one. Gym at 5. Home by 6 if there's a plan." "If there isn't a plan, I eat with friends," I told her. "I'm done waiting around to see if I'm worth a text." She rolled her eyes. I kept going. "We're also splitting the joint account, one for bills. The rest is separate. Your late nights aren't my expense anymore." Dana gave that little smirk. "You're dramatic. Do your little systems." She pushed the paper back with one finger like it was a joke. "I'm not asking permission," I said. I folded the paper, put it in my pocket, walked out to the garage, and grabbed the old cooler. Bo and I had a fishing trip planned that weekend. For the first time in a long time, my plans didn't need Dana's approval, and that right there felt like the first real bite of freedom. A week or so later, we're at Bo's place. Game on the TV, wings on the table, beer sweating in the coasters. It should have been one of those easy nights where the loudest argument is over a bad call. Dana was in rare form. Laugh a little too loud, touch a shoulder here, refill a glass there. I could feel it coming before she even opened her mouth. "You know what Rowan's good at?" she said, raising her voice just enough to grab the room. "Trying. He's got those Boy Scout vibes, always trying to fix things. Adorable." A couple of chuckles, the kind of laugh people use when they're not sure if they're allowed to. Eyes slid over to me, quick and guilty, like I was the weather and they were checking the forecast. I set my beer down, wiped my hand on my jeans. "From today on," I said, nice and clear, "if anyone builds jokes with my name, they get silence from me at home. I charge for material." Nobody laughed. Bo stared at the TV. One of the wives looked down at her plate. Dana's smile froze just a little too long, and in that quiet, they all understood. I wasn't going to play the clown for free anymore. The drive home after that wasn't quiet. It was loud on purpose. Dana cranked the music up like the right playlist could erase what I'd just said in Bo's living room. She sang along to a chorus she didn't know the words to, staring straight ahead. I waited until we pulled into the driveway, until the engine was off, before I said a word. "I told you once," I reminded her. "Next time, I act. No warning." She slammed the door, stomped into the house, threw a few sharp lines over her shoulder about me embarrassing her. I didn't argue. I'd already told her what would happen. I went to bed. The next morning, things shifted. Dana handed me a mug of coffee while I was at my laptop. "We got off track," she said, voice softer. "Works a lot. I didn't mean to be harsh." Her hand rested on my shoulder like nothing had happened. "Can we reset?" she asked. I looked at the coffee, then at her. "For now," I said. "Same rules. Respect is non-negotiable." She smiled, relieved, like she'd just hit a reset button on a game. But inside, I knew better. Storms don't end because someone says reset. They just pull back for a minute before they hit harder. Storms don't reset, they reload. A few days after that reset, she came into my office doorway, all casual. "Wine bar with the girls tonight," Dana said. "Not late, promise. I'll text when I'm heading back." "Okay," I answered. Simple. I looked her in the eye long enough so she knew I'd heard the word promise. She left at 7. I watched the clock on the stove hit 7:05, 7:10, then went on with my night. Dishes, a show, emails, nothing special. By 11, no text. Midnight, still nothing. Her little dot hadn't popped up once. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, I heard heels on the hallway floor. That sound hits different when you've been staring at the ceiling for hours. I opened the bedroom door as she passed. "Clocked at 7 hours, I said. "Your phone works fine on the porch when you're scrolling." She froze, then frowned. "Stop being controlling." I shook my head. My voice came out flat. "I'm not controlling, Dana. I'm being accurate." She scoffed, pushed past me, went straight to bed. And standing there in that doorway, it landed hard. She was comfortable breaking her word, and more bothered by being measured than by being dishonest. She wasn't scared of lying. She was scared of being caught. After she disappeared under the covers, the house went quiet again. Not peaceful, just quiet. I ended up back at the kitchen table, same overhead light, same old chair, a blank sheet of paper in front of me. The clock over the stove read 2:30 a.m. I wasn't angry in that loud way. It was sharper than that, clearer. I started writing. Places I go because she wants a prop beside her. Dinners where I sit there while she performs. Events where my name is the punchline but the check still has my signature on it. Work parties, certain bars, couple nights with people I'd never choose on my own. Halfway down the page, I stopped and said it out loud just to hear it. I'm done being a prop in someone else's show. I didn't need to slam anything. The sentence was enough. The next morning, I carried that list in my head to work. Sat on the tailgate of Beau's truck with a bad cup of coffee and told him the short version. He listened, then shook his head. She's pushing frames, man. If you don't set yours, she'll build hers on your back. And right there, in that parking lot, I decided, no more carrying the stage for someone who keeps cutting the floor out from under me. She could keep the spotlight. I was done holding up the stage. A few nights after The List, she did it again. House was dark, TV off, clock pushing past midnight when I heard the door. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening. Her heels hit the hallway, slow, like she was feeling each step. When she reached the bedroom door, I caught it before she could glide past. The perfume hit me first. Not the stuff on our bathroom counter. Something sharper, expensive. A scent that didn't belong to our life. It clung to her dress, her hair, her skin like she'd been sitting in it for hours. Her phone was welded to her hand, screen down, white-knuckle grip. "You hiding something you'd be proud of?" I asked. She didn't miss a beat. Rolled her eyes, pulled the blanket off the end of the bed. "Jealousy is ugly, Rowan," she said. "You should try not to wear it." Then she marched herself out to the couch, like she was the one who'd been wronged. I lay there alone, in a bed we bought together, in a house I paid for, realizing something I hadn't wanted to say out loud. I wasn't sharing a home with a wife anymore. I was sharing square footage with a roommate I never agreed to live with. There's a point where your gut has done its job and any more feeling is just self-torture. That's where I was when I called Grant Huxley. We met at Copper Coyote Coffee just after it opened. Place was half empty. A couple laptops, one old guy with a newspaper. Grant sat in the back booth, black coffee in front of him, no cream, no sugar. Fit. He slid a small notebook to the side and got straight to it. "Names, places, times," he said. "No commentary, just data." "That's all I need," I answered. "No adjectives, no drama, just receipts." We went over her routine. Wine with the girls, the bars she liked, the so-called late meetings, the nights she came back smelling like someone else's life. He nodded, asked a few clean questions, nothing messy. We agreed. He'd follow the nights she was out with the girls and log everything. Photos, locations, timestamps. When we were done, my coffee was cold, but my head was clearer than it had been in months. On the drive home, one thought kept repeating. I'm done arguing with stories. From here on out, it's just facts. Once you hire a guy like Grant, your brain shifts gears. Back at the house, I didn't start a fight. I started packing. Smart. I pulled the fireproof box out of the closet and actually used it. Birth certificates, titles, bank info, anything with my name and a number on it went into one place. Not because I planned on running, but because I was done pretending this was unbreakable. I moved a few folders out of my home office too. Stuff for work, retirement paperwork, the boring things that actually keep a man standing when everything else falls over. Changed the spare lock on the side door, grabbed an extra garage remote and kept it in my truck. Tiny moves, all of them. But they added up to one quiet truth. I might have to live alone again, and I wasn't going to be caught flat-footed if it happened. That night I texted her. "Working late tonight, don't wait up, don't wait." She wrote back one word. "Okay." No question mark, no emoji, no "be safe." Staring at that "okay" on my screen, I realized something cold and simple. Her feelings for this house had cooled a long time ago. She'd left the marriage months ago. I was just the last to notice. A couple days after I started locking things down, she tried to soften the edges. I opened the fridge before work and saw a lunchbox that wasn't there the night before. Neat little containers. On the lid, a sticky note. "Sorry for last weekend. D." Old me would have taken a picture, sent a heart, used it as proof we were working on it. This version of me picked up the box, read the note once, and put it straight into the break room fridge at work. Free food for whoever wanted it. I texted her one word. "Thanks." The rest of the day she sent memes, little jokes, a selfie with a "busy day" caption, all the usual digital confetti people throw when they don't want to clean up the mess in the room. I answered polite, short, nothing rude, nothing warm, just neutral. And that's when it really hit me. I wasn't in save the marriage at all costs mode anymore. I wasn't scanning every gesture for hope or stretching every apology into a miracle. I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I was waiting for the facts. Whatever was left after that, I'd deal with it as a man standing on his own 2 feet. The thing about waiting for bad news is, your body knows before your mind does. It was early, sun barely up. I was sitting in the truck in the parking lot at work, engine off, just letting the quiet sit for a minute before I clocked in. Phone buzzed, Grant's name on the screen. I answered. Yeah. His voice was calm, too calm. Patterns forming, he said. Full report soon. No details, no color, just those 2 words. Patterns forming. I rested my hands on the steering wheel and watched my knuckles go white, then back to normal as I forced my grip to loosen. I could have asked, what did she do? Who is he? How bad is it? But honestly, I already knew it wasn't going to be a single name or a single night. Okay, I said instead. When it's ready, send it to my lawyer, not to me. Got it, he replied. I hung up, sat there for another 30 seconds, listening to my heartbeat slow back down. Then I stepped out of the truck and walked into work like it was any other day. On paper, I was still married. In my head, I'd already left the building. The report came 2 days later. Grant called first, then followed with the file. I was at home, sitting at the dining table that had seen birthdays, bills, and a lot of silent meals. Walk me through it, I said. He did. Calm, clinical, dates, times, addresses, license plates, bar names, hotel entrances, screenshots of reservations, phone records lining up a little too perfectly with "out with the girls." It wasn't one guy. It was a rotation. My stomach didn't drop. It tightened, sure, but I'd already pictured it in my worst thoughts. Reality was just confirming. Then he read the names. Not strangers, not some random guy from a bar. Husbands, Lexi's, Shannon's, Marla's, Tessa's, the same women who would later sit at my kitchen island talking about what was fair and what was civil. I didn't interrupt, didn't swear, didn't flip the table. I wrote down what mattered, asked 2 questions to clarify timeline, and let him finish. When he was done, I took a breath that felt like it belonged to somebody else and said, "Email everything to Vernon Clark. I don't want it on my phone." I didn't need those images in my pocket. I just needed them in the file that was going to end this. There's anger, and then there's whatever you feel when the anger burns off and leaves just bone. That's what I took with me up the old wooden stairs to Clark and Dempsey family law. The hallway smelled like paper and old coffee. Vernon Clark shook my hand, sat down, and flipped through Grant's report and the notes I'd brought like he'd seen this movie 1,000 times. When he was done, he leaned back. "We keep it clean," he said. "No fireworks, paper signatures. You leave, we do the messy part. No speeches, no courtroom drama, just ink and process." He tapped the folder. "You disappear for a couple weeks. Let her think she's still in control. Then you come back with this." He lifted the file. Ground shifts under her feet. "You stay calm." "I don't want to breathe the same air while this is processing," I told him. "Then don't," he said. "Find a place. Short term. You keep the house on paper. She keeps the illusion for a minute." We went through the checklist, accounts, titles, what to move, what to leave. By the time I walked back down those stairs, the decision was made. I wasn't just leaving Dana emotionally anymore. I was about to leave the house too, on my terms. I found a small apartment in Chandler, nothing pretty. 1 bedroom, off a side street, carpet a little worn, mattress a little too soft, AC unit louder than it should have been. It was perfect. First night there, I lay on that cheap mattress, staring at a ceiling with no history, no fights, no jokes at my expense, just white paint and the steady rattle of the air conditioner. It hurt, sure. You don't walk out of a marriage without bleeding somewhere. But under the hurt, there was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Silence that wasn't punishment. Just silence. I called Troy and Bo, told them everything. All of it. Names, places, the rotation, the husbands. Troy cursed under his breath. "Jesus, man, she was busy." Bo went quiet for a long beat. Then, "You're doing the boring right thing," he said. "It pays off." We made a loose plan. Cards on Fridays, check-ins, nothing dramatic. The next morning I built a new schedule. Work, gym, simple meals, early bed. No waiting by the window, no listening for heels in the hallway. It was ugly and it was lonely. But for the first time in years, my life was mine again. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And that was the first real win in years. A week or so into the apartment life, Troy and Beau showed up. They didn't knock like guests. They walked in like brothers, arms full of takeout, a six-pack, and a beat-up deck of cards that had seen too many late nights. We ended up on my tiny balcony, three grown men squeezed around a cheap plastic table under a dim yellow light. Traffic hummed in the distance. It wasn't much, but it was ours for the night. I laid it all out. Dates, places, screenshots, which husband matched which night. I said the names slowly, watched them land. Their faces went through the whole cycle, shock first, then anger, then something heavier. Not just at Dana, but at the whole picture, at how close this all was to their own lives. After a long silence, Beau shook his head. "You handled this like a man," he said. "No yelling, just action. Most guys never get there. They just bleed out for years." Troy raised his bottle. "To boring decisions that save your life," he said. We ended up talking trash over cards, telling dumb stories from 15 years ago. I laughed, really laughed, and for the first time in weeks I didn't feel crazy. I just felt backed up. After that night, the days settled into something I hadn't had in a long time. Routine. Up at 5, gym, shower, coffee from the same spot on the corner, work, home to the apartment, simple dinner. No arguments about where to eat, no silent treatment at the table. I'd always thought happy meant big moments, vacations, date nights, anniversary posts for people to like. Turns out, at this age, happiness looks more like not having to explain yourself every single night. I didn't check Dana's social media, didn't drive by the old house, didn't ask the neighbors for updates. If something was burning over there, it wasn't my fire anymore. At work, a couple guys asked, "Everything okay at home?" I just said, "Better than okay," and left it there. In those quiet, structured days, I started to see the guy I was 10, 15 years ago. Before I let somebody turn me into their on-call punchline. Before I handed over my time and peace like it was unlimited, it wasn't exciting. It wasn't flashy. But the more boring my life got, the more I realized I would take this calm over her chaos every single time. Chaos used to feel normal. Now peace does, and I'm not going back. The call from Vernon came on a Tuesday afternoon. "Rowan, folder's ready. You can pick it up today." That was it. No build-up. Just the door quietly swinging open. I drove over after work, climbed those same worn stairs at Clark and Dempsey, and sat across from him one more time. He slid a thin manila folder across the desk. It didn't look like much, just paper and staples. But inside was everything. The petition, the financials, the copies of Grant's report, my exit, organized by section. Vernon tapped the cover with one finger. "No speeches, no fights," he reminded me. "Just put it on the table when the time is right. Let the paper do the talking." I nodded. "I'm done talking. I just want it clean." We went over a couple final details, what to say if she tried certain plays, what not to say no matter how loud it got. When I got back to the truck, I set the folder on the passenger seat and just sat there. It looked small, but staring at it I knew exactly what it was. Not just a stack of documents, a one-way ticket back to my own life. That night, back at the apartment, I stared at my phone for a good minute before typing. "Back home tonight, early, we need to talk." I hit send. Didn't even have time to set the phone down before it buzzed. Finally. Little eye roll emoji at the end. That word said everything. She thought she was about to get her big moment. The speech, the drama, the scene where she walks out the hero in front of whatever audience she'd lined up. I didn't respond. I picked up the folder, slid it into a plain black backpack, and drove. Same streets I'd driven 1,000 times, past the same grocery store, the same gas station, the same stucco houses with the same desert landscaping. But it didn't feel like going home. It felt like returning to a crime scene. Sun was dropping behind the neighborhood when I turned onto Desert Willow Circle. The sky went that burnt orange men in this state know by heart. I parked in my own driveway, let the engine cut off, sat there, hand on the backpack strap, breathing slow. Then I stepped out, slung the bag over my shoulder, and walked toward the front door. Straight into the moment you heard at the beginning of this story. I stepped into the kitchen and knew right away this wasn't a conversation. Dana was at the head of the table like she paid the mortgage. Lexi on her right, Shannon next, Marla and Tessa on the other side. 4 glasses of water, legal pads, pens lined up, all their phones face down like they were about to take a test. The only chair left open was at the far end. "Sit," Dana said. Not "hey," not "can we talk," just "sit," like a manager calling in an employee for a performance review. I pulled out the chair, sat down slowly, took my time setting my keys on the table. The backpack with the folder stayed on the counter behind me, just within reach. Dana folded her hands, took a breath like she'd rehearsed this. "We've talked," she began. "This isn't working. It's time to end this the fair way." "We," she said. Not we as in husband and wife. We as in her and the panel. The others kept their eyes mostly on her, like they were following a script. I just listened, let them stack their words, lay out their little courtroom. They thought I was walking into an ambush. I was just letting the jury finish clearing their throats. Dana glanced down at her notes, then back up at me. "We all agree this marriage is done," she said. "We can keep it civil. If you just sign." She nudged a pen toward the center of the table like she was offering mercy. Lexi gave a small nod. Shannon crossed her arms tighter. Marla had that half smirk she wears when she thinks she's on the winning team. Tessa looked at me the way people look at traffic accidents. Curious, slightly disgusted, glad it's not them. I let a beat pass. "We," I repeated. "That's an interesting word." Dana frowned, annoyed I wasn't following the script. "Rowan, don't..." "So my marriage," I cut in quietly, "is now a group project?" Chairs creaked. Eyes broke to the side. For a second, the air shifted. They weren't a unified front anymore, just 4 individuals who'd hitched themselves to someone else's drama. Dana forced a laugh that didn't land. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," she said. "We're trying to be fair." "There's that word again," I replied. "We." I leaned back, met each of their eyes one by one. They wanted me cornered. They didn't realize I'd just put a crack straight down the middle of their we. I leaned back in my chair, let the silence hang just long enough to make them shift. "Before we talk about fair," I said, "I've got one question for the panel." They looked at each other, a couple of tight, confident smiles. They thought this was the part where I'd beg, bargain, ask for a softer sentence. I kept my voice level. "Any of you have a problem?" I let my eyes move slowly from Lexi to Shannon to Marla to Tessa. "With your husbands being my wife's Thursday night fun?" The room snapped quiet. Every smirk died at the same time, like somebody cut the power. The only sound was the fridge humming. Lexi's head jerked toward Dana. Shannon's eyes went wide, the color draining out of her face. Marla muttered, "No way," under her breath like a prayer that wasn't working. Tessa just stared straight ahead, jaw tight, like she already knew before I said it. Nobody laughed. Nobody said, "You're being dramatic." In that moment, the we that came in here to judge me disappeared. It wasn't Dana and her jury anymore. It was 4 women suddenly wondering what exactly their husbands had been doing on weeknights. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't stand up. I just reached behind me, unzipped the backpack, and pulled out a thin envelope from the folder Vernon had prepared. I slid it to the middle of the table and opened it, one hand. A small stack of photos slid out and fanned across the wood. Bars. Parking lots. That hotel off the freeway everybody pretends not to recognize. Dana. Different outfits. Same patterns. I didn't point. Didn't label. I just let the pictures sit there. Lexi was the first to move. She pulled one closer, squinted, then went completely still. Her husband. Corner booth. Dana leaning in way too close, his hand exactly where it shouldn't be. "You've got to be kidding me," she whispered, louder than she meant to. Her chair scraped back hard. Shannon grabbed a different photo. Her husband. Same woman. Different night. Her mouth opened and closed twice before any sound came out. Marla's water glass shook when she set it down. "You're serious," she said to no one. Dana finally spoke, voice thin. It's not what it looks like. But she was talking to a table full of women staring at their own marriages in glossy 4x6 reality. Nobody was listening to her anymore. The kitchen was chaos now. Voices climbing over each other, chairs scraping, accusations flying, not at me, at her. The same women who walked in here as her backup squad were suddenly busy asking questions she couldn't answer. I let it run for a moment. Then I reached back into the backpack, pulled out the thicker stack from Vernon, and set it on the table beside the photos. "This," I said, tapping the top page, "is clean. You sign, I sign, we're done." I turned to Dana and made sure she was actually looking at me. "You're not taking what doesn't belong to you," I told her, "and you're leaving tonight." One of the friends, Shannon, I think, blurted out, "You're being cruel." I shook my head. "No," I said, "I'm finished. That's it. No speech, no monologue, just the verdict." I stood up, pushed my chair back in like it was any other evening, and walked out of the kitchen. Their voices swelled again behind me, this time all aimed at Dana. Upstairs in the quiet of our bedroom, it finally hit me. They thought tonight was about cornering me. They had no idea they'd just watched her sentence get handed down instead. In the bedroom, everything looked exactly like it always had. Her side, my side, the life we'd built lined up in drawers and on hangers. I pulled her suitcase from the closet, opened her dresser, folded her clothes, no ripping, no tossing, just clean stacks, tank tops, jeans, work blouses she wore to those late meetings. The framed photos on the dresser caught my eye. Us at the lake. Us at some wedding. I wrapped them in bubble wrap and laid them face down in the suitcase. I wasn't going to smash memories. I just wasn't going to keep displaying lies. Last came the keys. Spare house key, garage key, side gate. All of them went into one of the inside pockets. No confusion about access when this was done. When the suitcase was zipped, I hauled it out to the landing halfway down the stairs. Below, the noise in the kitchen had changed tone. Less defense, more interrogation. Her name in their mouths now, not mine. I stood there for a second, hand on the handle, then made a choice. I tipped the suitcase forward and let it roll down, step by step, each thud echoing through the house. Every head snapped up. They wanted a symbol? There it was. Her life in this home, headed for the door. By the time I came back downstairs, the energy in the kitchen had changed. Nobody was circling me anymore. They were all on their phones, thumbs flying. You didn't have to be a mind reader to know those texts were going straight to their husbands. Dana sat at the table, head in her hands, mascara smudged, shoulders shaking, but no tears. Just shock finally catching up. I didn't say a word to the room. I walked past them, unlocked the front door, rolled her suitcase out onto the porch. "You're leaving," I said, voice steady. "You don't come back. You don't call. You don't send people." She lifted her head, eyes searching for the old version of me. "I have nowhere to go tonight," she whispered. "You had options," I said. "You chose them." We stood there in the doorway, her inside, me in the frame, suitcase on the porch between us. A ride chair rolled up to the curb like it had been ordered earlier. She grabbed the handle, turned back one last time. "You're heartless," she said. I met her eyes and finally told the truth I'd been walking toward for months. "No," I answered. "I'm just not yours." Then I closed the door. The next morning the house felt hollow. No perfume, no heels, no second toothbrush by the sink. I drove to Vernon's office with the kind of calm that only shows up after the worst is already over. Same old wooden desk, same stack of papers, now marked with little flags. Vernon slid them toward me, one at a time, pointing. "Initial here, sign there, date this page." I didn't ask for a recap. I didn't stall. Pen down, pen up, page after page until the stack was done. When we finished, he gathered it all with practiced hands. "You came prepared," he said. "I was done 3 weeks ago," I told him. He nodded like that made perfect sense. Walking out of that building with my copy under my arm, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel broken either. I felt lighter, like I'd just paid off a debt I should have never signed for in the first place. Instead of heading straight home, I took the long way around Chandler. Windows down, warm air coming in. No one texting, asking where I was or when I'd be back. For the first time in years, I wasn't on anyone's leash. If I was going somewhere, it was because I chose it. The first real sign that my life had changed wasn't some big moment. It was breakfast. I was at my own kitchen table again. Eggs in a pan, 2 slices of toast, black coffee. Nobody walking by making a face, saying I eat like an old man. No comments about carbs or cholesterol or how boring my routine was. Just me, plate, fork, quiet. At work, I pulled my manager aside at Mesa Logistics and said, "Handled a situation at home. Might need a couple half days here and there." He shrugged. "Handle your business," he said, and that was that. No gossip, no drama, just 2 grown men acknowledging life happens. That afternoon, Troy swung by to drop off a wrench he'd had for months. He set it on the counter, studied my face a little longer than usual. "You good?" he asked. "I'm better than good," I said. "I'm done." He nodded like he understood exactly what that meant. That night, I went to bed early. No waiting for doors, no listening for heels, no bracing for the smell of a stranger's cologne on my wife. I closed my eyes and slept straight through till morning. Peace, I learned, isn't fireworks. It's the absence of 2 a.m. dread. A couple weeks later, I bought myself a new fishing rod. Nothing fancy, just solid. I called my sister and asked if I could steal her boy for a Saturday. So I picked up my nephew, grabbed a cooler, and we drove out to Saguaro Lake. We set up 2 camp chairs near the water. No big speeches, just lines in the lake, a light breeze, the sun doing what it does. For a long time, we didn't say much. We talked about lures, which fish hit in the morning, which ones wait till the shade. He told me about some kid at school he doesn't like, regular stuff. At one point, he looked over and asked, "Uncle Rowan, are you happy now?" I thought about it for a second. "I sleep," I said. "I eat. I'm not in a circus anymore. That's pretty close to happy for a man my age." He nodded, like that made sense. What I didn't tell him out loud was this. I was showing him what self-respect looks like without ever using the phrase. A man who won't live as a joke. A man who leaves when the deal gets dirty. I watched the flat, quiet surface of the lake and saw a version of myself I could live with. One that didn't rise and fall on somebody else's drama. My life finally ran on my decisions, not her drama. Life has a way of circling people back to you when the dust hasn't quite settled. I was at the grocery store one evening, pushing a cart with eggs, coffee, and the same boring stuff I always buy now. Turned the corner into produce and almost crashed into someone else's cart. Tessa. No makeup armor this time. Hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes. She looked smaller somehow. We both froze for a second. "I owe you a thank you," she said, fingers tightening on the cart handle. "For what?" I asked. "For not dragging us online. For not turning it into a story. You could have blown all of us up." I shrugged. "I don't do content," I said. "I do decisions." Her eyes went red around the edges. She stared down at the carrots like they were suddenly interesting. "It's ugly right now," she admitted. "At home, with him, with all of it. But at least it's honest." "Honest is ugly before it's clean," I told her. She nodded, let out a breath she'd been holding, and gave me a small, tired smile before wheeling her cart away. Watching her go, I realized my choice didn't just free me, it forced the truth into a lot of living rooms. A while later, I was taking out the trash at the apartment complex when my neighbor from 2 doors down, Harper, waved me over. She's about my age, maybe a little younger, works odd hours, keeps to herself. "Hey," she said, "I've got 2 tickets to a minor league game Saturday. My brother bailed. You want to go? I hate wasting a good seat." I almost said no out of habit. Then I caught myself. "Yeah," I said. "Why not?" We ate hot dogs that were too salty and laughed at a brutal dropped ball in the outfield. We made fun of the mascot, argued in a friendly way about which stadium has the worst nachos. She didn't ask about my past. I didn't dig into hers. No trauma dumping, no saving each other. We were just 2 adults watching baseball on a warm night, sharing cheap food and clean conversation. When I walked her to her car afterward, I said, "This was good." "Yeah," she smiled. "Simple's nice." On the drive home, it hit me. I'm not looking for a fairy tale. I'm not starving for grand gestures. I just want moments where nobody's using me as a prop or a punchline. I don't need perfect. I just need real. The last time I saw Dana, it wasn't at some big event. It was at a gas station off the highway. I was filling up the truck, mind on nothing, when a rideshare pulled into the next lane. Door opened, and there she was, stepping out with that same half-rush, half-performance walk. She saw me before I could pretend I hadn't seen her. She froze, like a kid caught sneaking back into class after the bell. After a second, she walked over. "Rowan, can we talk for a minute?" she asked. "You can talk," I said. "I'll listen for one." She swallowed, eyes flicking everywhere but my face. "It wasn't what you think," she started. I'm getting help. Therapy. I'm trying. I miss the house." There it was. Not I miss you. I miss the house. "The house, huh?" I said. "You miss the platform, not the person." Her mouth opened, then closed. There wasn't a good comeback for that, and we both knew it. Standing there between two gas pumps with engines humming around us, it was clear. She was still trying to save the image. I was just protecting what was left of the truth. She tried one more angle. "You were good to me," Dana said, voice softer now. Maybe she believed it. Maybe she just needed to say something that made her feel like the story wasn't all bad. "I was good to us," I corrected. "You chose you." She winced a little, then regrouped. "You don't have to be cruel." I tightened the gas cap, hung the nozzle back on the pump. "This isn't cruel," I said. "This is what respect sounds like when you've burned through your chances." For a moment, we just stood there. No yelling, no scene, just two people who used to share a life now sharing a patch of concrete and nothing else. "Take care, Dana," I said finally. That was it. No hug, no maybe someday, just a clean sentence. I got in the truck and pulled away. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing there, hair moving in the wind from passing cars. Not as my wife, just a stranger at pump number 4. Back home, I grabbed leftovers from the fridge, sat on the back steps with a glass of water, and watched the sky go from orange to dark. My chest felt quiet. Not empty, just done. Men waste years trying to get back what someone took on purpose. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. You can't talk someone into respecting you. You set the bar, you enforce it, or you live under whatever standard they give you. It started with a little joke at a backyard BBQ. My marriage turned into a bit, and I played along because I didn't want to make a scene. Then came the cold texts, the late nights, the new perfume, the secretive phone. I hired a man to follow my wife because my gut was tired of carrying the load alone. Facts showed up. Her rotation, their husbands, all of it. From there, it was folders and signatures, a suitcase on the stairs, a woman on my porch calling me heartless, a gas station goodbye where I finally said, "I'm just not yours." Peace is not free. It cost you the version of you that kept begging, kept explaining, kept hoping they'd suddenly treat you like you treat them. If you're a man who chose peace over drama, hit subscribe. Not for me. For the next guy who needs to hear he's not crazy for wanting a quiet, respectful life.